Stranger Things is back, and it's the 4th season of the hit show. However, the final 2 episodes have been chopped off by Netflix for airing at a later date. Keep those subscriptions going, you rubes! In the meantime, let's take a closer look at the latest truncated season and some cool details and references. For bonus fun, take a shot every time I mention Stephen King. If you pass out on the keyboard, there's a chance you might leave a like. Spoiler warning for Season 4. The name of the first episode is the Hellfire Club. Like many episodes of Stranger Things, it's an allusion to the popular culture of the 1980s. The club first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 129 in 1980. The nefarious group is most known for tempting the powerful psychic Jean Grey to evil. The Hellfire Club in the show is the boys' ongoing Dungeons and Dragons party, which is honestly setting a pretty high standard because none of my campaigns have custom shirts. During a car ride with Robin and Steve, they talk about Robin's potential love interest with Vicky. Robin isn't sure if Vicky will return her affection. Being the 1980s, it's a risky move to admit her feelings to another woman, but Steve assures her that Vicky returns Fast Times paused at 53 minutes 5 seconds. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is a classic 80s set high school feature, and at the specified time, Phoebe Cates' character has an iconic reveal. In fact, the scene is often cited as one of the most paused moments of all time. I'll leave the meaning of that title unspoken for the sake of not angering the YouTube gods.
Boobies!
Chrissy meets a very brutal end at the climax of the first episode. She is in the home of the newly introduced Eddie, purchasing some harder drugs than the Mary Jane she got before. Earlier in the episode, she suffered from disturbing visions of her abusive mother, but those visions go to 11, puns, when she is dispatched horrifically. The whole sequence has a lot in common with one of Stranger Things' 80s influences, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Chrissy is taken into a dream world and taunted through a twisted version of her own home. In the real world, a black-haired delinquent tries to wake her, but watches helplessly as she's thrown to the ceiling and mangled. It's incredibly similar to Tina's end in the classic horror film. New character Eddie also finds himself in the same subplot that Rod does in the Wes Craven film. He is the prime suspect in the death of the young cheerleader, and being a local well-known delinquent means a lot of the town are quick to believe it. So far, he has had much better luck evading his pursuers, but that's mostly because he's much less of a dick compared to Rod. When Robin is pining for her crush, she goes on a bit of verbal diarrhea and leans up against a large poster. Since she is working in a video store, it's a poster for a recently released film. Well, recent in the show. It's the poster for the 1985 released The Last Dragon, a kung fu Motown musical from musical producer Berry Gordy. It's a nice shout out to a lesser known cult film, and it was homaged heavily in another Netflix production, The Get Down. Unfortunately for that Netflix original, it didn't have Stranger Things viewing numbers. Episode 2 has a running theme, being a dirty liar and having it blow up in your face. It starts when Eleven is lying to Mike about how cool she is and how easy everything is going, and it comes to a head with a slight nod once again to Stephen King. During the roller rink party, she is dragged into the middle of the dance floor and taunted by the bullies until she is doused in a frosty chocolate milkshake. I guess they didn't get the memo not to taunt a powerful psychic girl at a party. Fortunately for them, Eleven has been recently depowered. Unfortunately for them, Eleven still knows how to break a fool. Chrissy's boyfriend goes on a bit of a rampage about the recent death of his ladylove. He blames her death on Eddie, and more specifically on the Satan-worshipping cult he leads. The cult is actually just his Dungeons and Dragons group, but Jason isn't fooled. He says that he has heard of people who lose the ability to tell reality from fantasy because of the game and hurt people. What he is actually remembering is the 1982 film Mazes and Monsters, starring a pre-famed Tom Hanks. The made-for-TV movie is about a fictionalized version of D&D that drives Hank's character insane and leads him to almost jumping off the World Trade Center. The Satanic Panic was very much a real thing at the time, and it was often focused on the tabletop role-playing game. Given D&D's massive recent explosion in pop culture, I would say the devil won. Go Satan! When Max and Dustin take over the video store computer system to find where Eddie could be hiding, they bring up a list of customers named Rick. There are a number of them, and it looks like a famous cartoon scientist is among them. One of the names is Rick Sanchez, the protagonist of Rick and Morty. The Nightmare on Elm Street references keep coming with the introduction of Victor Creel. When she visits Eddie's uncle, Nancy learns about the madman and his previous actions. Creel is later revealed to be played by Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger himself. Creel is not the one who attacked his family, but rather his son. Still, it's appropriate that the storied actor appears because of the influence his character had on the season 4 antagonist. There's even the continuing nods when main character Nancy is thrust into the upside-down Creel mansion, and hears an ominous and gravelly voice calling her name.
I see you've been looking for me, Nancy.
When the season's monster Vecna is revealed, his home in the Upside Down is an appropriately spooky mansion. The former home of the Creel family certainly has seen better days, in both the Dark Netherrealm and here on Earth. The look of the house has its inspirations in the homes of other horror icons. Its design shares similarities to the home of Norman Bates and his controlling mother. Psycho 3 was even released in 1986, the year Stranger Things 4 is set. Yes, I said Psycho 3 because the black and white classic had 2 sequels in the 80s, which saw the Bates home fall into disrepair. It's not the only source of inspiration for the house, however. When the gang finds the Creel house in episode 6, they entered the dilapidated home with flashlights at the ready. They must also be planning on reenacting a critical scene in Stephen King's It. Yes, this is extremely similar to the sequence in It where the Losers Club enters the home of the clown Pennywise. Both Pennywise and Vecna are beings of immense power from another realm that hunt teenagers through their trauma and fears. Vecna is the soft-spoken, skinless horror that is haunting the cast this season, and he's a pretty gross and goopy creep. He has a lot in common with another attic-dwelling creep. The monster spends his time hiding in the decrepit top of the large gothic Creel house, and is collecting victims to increase his strength. This is extremely similar to the Clive Barker film Hellraiser. While the Cenobites took over as the stars of the series in later films, the first focused mostly on the evil Frank and his attempts to rebuild his body with a fresh supply of victims, much like how Vecna grows stronger with each teenager. While Vecna is reaching out from the Upside Down and finding his latest victim, he enters a trance-like state and begins to reach out to potential targets. This sequence is incredibly similar to how Cerebro is depicted in the Bryan Singer X-Men films. It's another X-Men reference this season, next to the Hellfire Club and Dustin and Max's own personal Cerebro, which is just a police scanner and CB radio. Season 4 is filled with references and inspirations taken from the tale of an ill-fated family and their Long Island home. The biggest one is in the tragic story of the Creel family. When Robin and Nancy manage to bluff and scam their way into a meeting with the supposedly insane father, they learn the details of how he survived his encounter with Vecna. Details are taken from both events surrounding the Long Island home. First is the real-life crimes of Ronald DeFeo Jr. against his own family, the details of which shocked the nation. There was little supernatural about the crime's methods, but DeFeo claimed insanity and said he heard voices plotting against him. We later learn the other side from Henry Creel, aka One, aka Vecna. He also says he heard into his family's minds and saw that they were not innocent. Like his real-life counterpart, he also took things to a lethal conclusion. The other connection is to the horror itself and the experiences of the Lutz family. In 1975, they moved into the old DeFeo house and a short while later fled in terror. They reported hearing strange sounds and disturbances in the night. Victor Creel talks about the same experiences, from the mutilated animals to the dark visions. The Amityville Horror is a hugely influential book and later film. Since its release, it's influenced countless horror films and series. There has also been a litany of Amity blank films that continue to this year's Amity Uprising, which features zombies somehow. Watergate is an unexpected point of reference this season, with both an early reference and then a callback later in the series. It first comes up when the groups are breaking into the school's counselor office to steal her records on Vecna's previous victims. Later, when they find the gate to the Upside Down under the lake, they give it the moniker Watergate. It's enough to elicit a chuckle from several parties, including me. Back to when Robin and Nancy lie their way into a meeting with Victor Creel. As they are led down past cell after cell of insane convicts, they are told the strict rules for interacting with the prisoner. It's a speech that's almost taken verbatim from the classic Silence of the Lambs. The whole scene is a pretty close recreation of when Agent Clarice Starling meets the infamous cannibal Dr. Lecter. Creel ends up being far less dangerous than Hannibal, but his revelations are no less helpful when it comes to saving Max from Vecna's curse. While the hospital's security is top-notch, it looks about as good at helping people as Arkham Asylum. When Max is under threat from Vecna and his eye-popping ways, she slips into a vision or trance of the Upside Down. When she approaches the spooky home, there is a prominent grave out front. The headstone reads, Myers, like the lead slasher in the classic Halloween series. It looks like Vecna managed to do what both Donald Pleasance and Rob Zombie couldn't: bury the Shatner-faced maniac once and for all. Tammy Thompson returns to deliver a pitchy version of the Star-Spangled Banner. Tammy previously appeared in the past season, and since leaving high school it looks like her singing career took off. Her outfit is a reference to Madonna and her 1984 VMA Awards outfit. It's an iconic dress, and it's a fun detail that it's already 2 years out of date on the fashion side. She's probably not going to end up like Madonna because of being too pitchy. When Eleven arrives at the location of the top-secret Project Nina, she finds it looking a little unassuming. It's a single shed sitting out in the middle of a vast stretch of American desert. To her surprise, the utility shed is actually an elevator that leads to a massive underground base. This is just like the Wildfire facility in the seminal Michael Crichton work, The Andromeda Strain. In both the book and the 1971 film, the entrance to the top-secret Wildfire facility is also hidden in a storage closet. Stranger Things has taken some inspiration from the Andromeda Strain before, including Season 1's white suits. The Duffer Brothers cited a more recent movie as inspiration this season. One film in particular is the Seth Rogen stoner comedy Pineapple Express. The character of Argyle was directly inspired by Franco's role, and it's never more apparent than when the shit hits the fan and he is forced to make a quick getaway. By the way, quick shout out to Unknown Agent Hero Man, who is an absolute beast when everything went down. 2 later episodes are directed by Hungarian filmmaker Nimrod Antel. Before Stranger Things, Antel was known for the 2010s Predator sequel that wasn't a massive disappointment. Shane Black may have written Lethal Weapon, but he lost out on making a better Predator movie to a guy named Nimrod. This season, and the Predators have a common plot revolving around a group of dangerous criminals and ne'er-do-wells who are forced to fight an alien monster for sport. The connection to Winona Ryder is also fun, as the actress was in the 4th Alien film Resurrection. It's almost an Alien vs. Predator matchup, but better than any of those were. During the climax of episode 7, we learn the dark origins of Vecna. He was number 1 and the source of the powers that now inhabit 11. During this revelation, a bombastic and ethereal score begins to play throughout. This song is actually Pruitt Igoe and Prophecies from the Phillip Glass Ensemble. It was originally created as part of the experimental film Koyaanisqatsi. The name itself means life out of balance, which is a fitting way to describe the effect 1 and the Upside Down has had in Hawkins. A more direct connection comes from Zack Snyder and his 3-hour-long superhero epic. No, not that one. The good one. Yes, one's transformation into Vecna mirrors Doc Manhattan's transformation in the adaptation of the Alan Moore masterpiece. Both men are destroyed and then reborn into something tremendously powerful. At least Doc Manhattan got to keep his junk. Stranger Things 4 is the beginning of the end for the characters that many people have grown attached to. It's hard to think the first season came out in 2016, and there has only been 4 seasons of a show that is wildly influential. It kickstarted the careers of many new talented actors and revitalized the careers of a few older ones too. When the series comes to an end, it will be sad to see these characters go. But at least we'll have them for a little longer. Mostly because Netflix will split season 5 into 6 parts.